Hey guys, Paquette here, and today I'm going to be giving my full breakdown of Blight, the new 3.8 League. I've developed a whole bunch of notes with some help from Grimmery, but first let's just watch the trailer and take it all in.
The Blight, a creeping black fungus that feeds on the will of its hosts. Pulsating with toxic blood, too dangerous to touch, too dangerous to ignore. We must drain the ichor of this dark infection. Its mindless husks will protect its core. So I build weapons. Towers which conjure flames, chill the air, move the earth. Even so, I need your might. And to the mighty go the spoils. The source of this blight is out there. Its black tendrils reaching for us. We will seek it out and purge it. The blight is here. And we are the cure.
I love the soundtrack, so good. Alright, we'll listen to Chris and I'll get into my breakdown.
In the Blight League, Sister Cassia is trying to stop the spread of the mind-controlling blight by destroying fungal growths. When attacked, the blight commands infected monsters to defend it. The monsters mindlessly follow the blight's tendrils, only attacking foes directly in their path. The infected are unusually tough, so you'll need to build defensive towers to exploit each monster's specific weaknesses. For each tendril lane you defend, a chest will appear with your rewards. These rewards can include oils, which Sister Cassia can combine together to enchant certain items. Blighted maps contain larger pockets of infection. Cleanse these for rewards, including unique items which can be enchanted with notable passive skills. In Path of Exile Blight, we also have a focus on giving you more control over when you run side content. Master missions now stack for later if you don't run them immediately. This expansion also contains significant revamps to the Saboteur, Assassin, and Necromancer Ascendancy classes, as well as an additional bar of skill bindings. Check out Path of Exile Blight on September 6th.
Awesome. Now, I'm not going to read through everything. Instead, what I've done is I prepared a document which summarizes everything, and I'll just leave this trailer looping in the background so we have something pretty to look at. So, just to summarize what is being added in Blight League, we have a new tower defense system we've never previously seen in Path of Exile. Some people are very into it, some people are a bit iffy on it, but we'll get into that a bit later. We have 18 new div cards, 16 new skill and support gems, 16 new unique items, 24 reworked uniques, 6 being substantial overhauls, reworked master mission system. They now stack infinitely, and regardless of if you've logged in that day, you'll receive 2 new missions every day. I'm assuming you'll still need to have created a character. But if you were planning to like have a holiday or play like classic WoW or Borderlands or basically any different game, you could maybe have a system where like you got your character to maps, like got them into red maps, then you disappeared for a few weeks, you come back and you have like 50 missions saved up, and that'd be like 50 Nikos, 50 Alvas, 50 Zanas, which is actually really cool. The idea of stockpiling up loads of master missions is really, really cool. We're having a new anointment system, which you get from the oils. So from doing the actual blights themselves, you get these special oils you can use to enchant your rings and amulets, or you can juice up special blighted maps. So you have the option, do you want to craft better gear, or do you want to craft harder and more rewarding maps? So you have that interesting choice of, do you want to go crafting or just mapping? The rings will buff the towers. So the towers you see It might be like your fireball towers shoot more fireballs, the towers that stun for longer or have bigger radius, the slow harder, stuff like that. And then the amulets, they actually give you passives on the skill tree. There are also 13 secret passives that you can only get through oils. There is also a set of blighted uniques, 4 items, and those can also be anointed. So you can have up to 5, 4 with the full set, and then 1 on the amulet, and I guess also the 2 rings, but yeah. Now, in terms of abilities, we're having 3 main archetypes being pushed in Blight League. We have Necromancer with a whole bunch of new minion support gems and some new minions. We have Saboteur seeing some major reworks. The main focus is on mines, but I'm sure there'll be some nice little tools for traps as well. Assassin with the main focus being on poison and poison reworks. Now, all 3 of these ascendancies will see specific mechanical reworks, probably new notables. Kind of think about what we've seen from stuff like Occultist, Champion, Slayer, basically all the reworked ascendancies in the past. There will also be some numerical changes happening to Raider, but no massive reworks. Now, the things which are really cool in particular to focus on from those 3 archetypes, minions will have new support gems, one of which will let us choose and manipulate the actual AI behavior. Players have wanted a way to manipulate the AI of their minions for a very long time. You could have them be more passive, more aggressive, more defensive, move faster. We have a new thing where you like mark enemies for death and all of your minions will swarm that one enemy. So that's all very cool. Mines are now throwable. If you didn't know, previously you'd lay mines at your feet. And you would lay mines and press another button to detonate all of your mines. And you just you'd alternate spamming mines and spamming detonates. Now what happens is you throw a whole bunch of mines out. They actually reserve mana rather than having a flat mana cost. And then when you detonate your mines, it detonates all of your mines in a sequence. And the more mines you have out, the more powerful they are. Not only will you do more damage because you have 10 mines being detonated rather than 1, but each subsequent mine will do more damage, so it really promotes this idea of stockpiling a bunch at once. We also have these new minions called Skitterbots. Skitterbots are specific trap and mine minions, and their role is to support trappers and miners. They will trigger your traps, also trigger your mines. We don't know the full details, that seems very interesting. We're also seeing the introduction of a new defensive mechanic called Elusive. We don't know how this works, but we do know that the Assassin will have a notable support in this. If I had to make a massive guess, I'm assuming it'd be some kind of guaranteed evade or guaranteed dodge, which maybe stacks up. Pure speculation, though. Getting into some of the miscellaneous things being added, we're seeing the introduction of additional skill bar. None of the artwork, none of the images, nothing shows the additional skill bar in action. But apparently we're getting another bar, which is huge. We've wanted more bindings for a really long time. Finally getting new binds is a buff for every single player, regardless of what builds you play. We're also seeing, as I mentioned, some improvements to raidage from a numerical point of view. And if you look at a lot of this artwork, there's actually new artwork for both life and mana flasks. We might potentially see some kind of rework to how life and mana flask works. It might just be numerical, might just be finally updating the art because they haven't had updated art for a long time. But still, that's very nice. Now getting into my pros and cons of the league. And after that, there's a whole bunch of notes that I gathered from my friend Grimro and from some of his friends that he spoke to about the league itself. So, pros. We're seeing 3 archetypes being pushed that gives plenty of variety. With last league being mostly focused on melee players, if you went into melee, you might be like, oh, a bit boring. But now it's do you care about minions? Do you care about mines? Do you care about poison? There's a whole different ways of building poison, attack-based, spell-based. There's loads of different ways of building mines. Minions can be very complex. Even just small little tweaks into 1 or 2 playstyles can completely change loads of other playstyles. So you should have plenty of options. And then I'm sure we'll also see some balance patch changes just to other skills as well. As I mentioned again earlier, the long-awaited improvements to minion AI, additional skill par, improved master missions. These have all been big points of contention with the player base for a long time, so finally seeing these core improvements is very promising, not only for 3.8, but for the future of Path of Exile just going forward. Anointed items seem incredibly powerful. So being given passives, again, these won't be keynotes, these won't be stuff like Acro, Phase Acro, or Avatar Fire, but actually, passives like Graceful Assault, Ambidexterity, Feller of Foes, so on and so forth. So you could just get a whole bunch of damage. That's not build enabling, that's just very powerful, but some examples of some of the more build enabling options. Hex Master giving you a additional curse. Spiritual Aid giving minion damage affects you. Life and Mana Leech. These are all things which are universally very powerful, and being able to suddenly get stuff from the complete right side without having to travel over there. A lot of attack builds felt forced into coming down for Spirit Void or Vitality Void. Getting those is really, really huge. Very, very big. Charge generation. In 3.7, we saw a whole bunch of nodes which gave you charge generation or min or maximum charges. There's maximum resistances all over the skill tree. Flask effect. There's onslaught and phasing generation on the skill tree. Reduced mana reservation. Instant war cries. Skill effect duration, stuff like Crystal Skin, avoiding ailments. There's a lot of incredibly powerful just notables on the skill tree. So having that on amulets is huge. Also, the 13 secret amulets the 13 secret passives we don't know about, I'm assuming are also going to be incredibly powerful. Another very nice thing about anointed items is the way that anointed items work through the oils you gather. When the AI pops up, the little UI, when you go to craft your anointed item, actually shows you the result before you do it. So unlike Synthesis League, where a lot of players just felt completely lost, now if you have 10 oils, you can just throw in random combinations and see what you want to get beforehand. This makes the system much more player friendly. You don't have to have gone through all the databases. You don't need to refer to a bunch of spreadsheets. You can just see what you have and pick something which works for your build. It's still going to be a bit complex because most people aren't going to know, like, what does this notable do just from the name, but you can just look it up on the skill tree or look it up in Path of Building and quite quickly see it. That tiny bit of micromanagement for some players will be a bit off-putting, but it's the off-putting nature is worth it for just how powerful it really is. The uniques we've seen so far have been very powerful. To just show you a couple of the examples, we have this dagger that gives global +3 level to all physical spells. So you could dual wield these and have global +6. You don't need to have the gems in here. So this could be like buffing up heralds, buffing up ethereal knives, any minions which have like physical and spell tag. Very, very strong. These gloves are incredibly interesting. These give you minions convert percentage of physical damage to X damage type, depending on red, green, blue, or white sockets. This is very interesting for having 100% Fizz to Chaos conversion, 100% Fizz to Lightning, doing like multiple conversions in some interesting niche cases. Very build-enabling gloves that can be equipped at a low level. Always a massive fan of stuff like that. Here we see a very interesting amulet, which is focused very much on the elusive mechanic. We don't know how that works. Travel skills and frenzy charges. So increased cooldown recovery of travel skills per frenzy charge. You can very easily get like 8 frenzy charges. That's 80% cooldown recovery. Pretty good. Increased effect of elusive per power charge. You don't know what that is, but assuming it's going to be good. Chance to lose a frenzy charge when you use a travel skill. That's obviously a negative. Chance to lose a power charge when you gain elusive, obviously also a negative. Your maximum frenzy charges is equal to your maximum power charges. Could be very powerful on a power charge stacking assassin, could be very powerful on a channel-based trickster. Trickster is very easy generation of both frenzy and power charges. So you could stack a bunch of power charges, also get a whole bunch of frenzy charges, and then get easy generation to buff up your movement skills and your elusive mechanic. The div cards we've seen have also been very powerful. Akil's Prophecy gives you a fated unique item. Interestingly enough, this was actually a div card I wanted to make myself. So whoever made this, well done. I've been working on a div card. It's going to be an alteration div card. But before I picked to making an alteration div card, I wanted a div card which gave a fated prophecy. So this is the same idea that I had, but a much cleaner version. Mine would have given you a fated prophecy. This skips that middleman, just gives you the fated unique. I really like this div card. Super cool, super interesting. Item level 100 Elder Bone Helmet. Powerful, a little bit boring, but so far the stuff we've seen has been very powerful. Also Legion Scarabs. Also Legion has been added into the core game. But getting back into the pros and cons. The actual artwork and the theming of the league is really interesting. I've made previous videos about potential leagues I'd like to see, and I wanted a fungal-based league. Fungal-based stuff is sick. Really like fungal-based items. Really, really cool. The towers that you interact with the league mechanic, not entirely sure how they'll function at endgame, like how powerful they'll be or how weak they'll be compared to your player's strength. But while leveling, they look like they'll be fairly impactful. So if you have a weak character, but the towers are very strong, you can still meaningfully engage the mechanic while leveling. I'm a big fan of leagues that you can engage with both while leveling and at endgame to a serious degree. So that I'm a big fan of. Getting into some of the potential cons, just from what we've seen so far. These may not turn out to be real cons once we actually play it, but from what we've seen, just my initial reactions. Very, very heavy screen clutter. A lot of the trailers, a lot of the gameplay stuff we've seen from Ziggy D and other articles, there's just a lot going on, and from that, it can be... Screen clutter is just hard to see what's happening to your character. If you can't see what's happening to your character, it's harder to dodge things, and yeah, that just seems like it could be an issue. Also, keep in mind, you'll see Blight on top of other master missions, so you have a Blight going on, then all of a sudden an intervention jumps in, and people are trying to assassinate you, and all the Syndicate AoEs are getting lost within all this other stuff. That's the main way where I can see visual clutter being a big issue. If you're playing in groups, the visual clutter is going to be absolutely ridiculous. Visual clutter has been a big issue in PoE for a long time, but this league in particular seems like it might be particularly harsh in that sense. With that, the performance might also suffer. Legion handled very well for me from a performance point of view. Some people really struggled. If you've been struggling with PoE's performance, this looks like it might be another league you may struggle with performance-wise. Towers could be a bit finicky. So the way the towers work is you see that you like hover over them, then you pick from this radial menu. It looks relatively smooth, but players have a history of not liking non-direct combat mechanics, stuff like net, stuff like flares, stuff like dynamite. Players have a history of not liking this kind of gameplay, so I'm curious to actually get my own hands on it and see how smooth it feels. I see this being a very love or hate league mechanic. Examples of other love or hate league mechanics, stuff like bestiary, stuff like synthesis, stuff which has a lot of like non-direct gameplay. Some people want to just AFK, watch Netflix, watch streams, just map. Some people like to have that sense of achievement of like, I've read all the guides, I know the optimal tower setup, and they like that micro gameplay. People generally just love or hate it. This will come with the league mechanic itself. Also coming directly after Legion, which was just an AFK kill mobs kind of league. I could see this being viewed more harshly. When you have these very involved leagues, when they're groups like one after the other, like if this came right after Synth